Yo, what's going on YouTube? It's DLloyd. So this morning we heard that Team USA has decided to withdraw Kawhi Leonard and replace him with Derrick White over a couple other players that people were expecting should be the replacement. I mean, mainly you hear Jalen Brunson being named. You hear Jaylen Brown as a potential replacement. And then people are still going to talk about Kyrie Irving and how he is not on this USA team roster at all. Kawhi Leonard, of course, dealing with that knee injury, in that right knee, the meniscus injury. They said he performed and he practiced and he looked okay at practice, but both Team USA basketball and the Clippers decided it would be best for them to go ahead and hold him out of the Olympic Games in France and let him get prepared for the NBA season. Now, before I get into the drama about Derrick White being added, let's talk about the Clippers and Kawhi Leonard, because the Clippers are definitely in a situation. They are in a situation because they elected to give Kawhi Leonard that 3-year, $150 million contract. We heard on Podcast P that Paul George felt disrespected that he only got a 2-year, $60 million contract at first. They initially decided to go ahead and try to lowball him. Then they came back with a better, more competitive offer, just like Kawhi Leonard. But at that point, he felt disrespected already. And then he said, throw in that no trade clause. They refused to do that. And he said, okay, fine. If you're not going to throw in the no trade clause, give me 4 years, $212. They said, we're not going to do that neither. Then he ended up going to Philly. Of course, in between that, the Golden State Warriors was a real thing as well. But he ended up going to Philly on the 4-year, $212. So they decided to go all in with Kawhi. And allowing Paul George to leave really the way that he left, you are banking on Kawhi Leonard, right? You're opening the new arena this year. You still have James Harden. We don't know what's going to happen with Russell Westbrook. He opted into his deal, but there were widely spread rumors that they were trying to trade him. We don't know if he will eventually get traded or if they will just bring him back and let him play this season. We'll see what ultimately ends up happening. But you have Kawhi Leonard, so you have to really protect Kawhi Leonard and that knee, because we have not seen Kawhi play. And what's going to happen if Kawhi Leonard goes out for 20-plus games again? You don't have Paul George to pick up the slack. Now you got James Harden really running the show. And can James Harden be that at this point? Maybe he can. But we know how tough the Western Conference is. And you're not in an ideal situation if Kawhi goes out with the injury. So I understand having that cautiousness, right? Being able to say, okay, the sit back, I understand that he does want this opportunity to play for his country, to try to win gold, but we have invested a ton of money. You look at the rest of the roster, is not really there. We have to go ahead and hold him out. I perfectly understand that. I think really the bigger issue was that the fact that he was selected to the final roster in the first place, just because of the injury history. I mean, and then the optics, right? You're not playing in the playoffs, but you're going to be on the Olympic team. But at the end of the day, we've seen the same thing with Joel Embiid, right? So they elected to just try to take who they thought was the best players possible, which now leads to Derrick White being the replacement. Because is he the best player possible? When you look at Jaylen Brown, I think there's no question Jaylen Brown is a better player than Derrick White. When you look at Brunson, I believe Brunson is a better player than Derrick White. Kyrie Irving, clearly a better player than Derrick White. But I do think that something that people aren't really considering is when they announced Kawhi Leonard was going to be on the team, they also said weeks ago, really, if something happens to Kawhi and he has to pull out for whatever reason, Derrick White is going to be the replacement. I think he was on call. He was ready to go. Yes, that could have been somebody else. But once that decision was made, I understand when it goes out, you're going to give it to Derrick White. And in terms of fit with the team, I also believe it's a solid fit. Yes, Jaylen Brown's a better player. But when you look at this roster, there are a ton of ball-dominant wings. So you go ahead and you get in Jaylen Brown. He's going to do the same thing. And when you looked at Kawhi Leonard, you really try to figure out how he was going to fit into the lineup, because you couldn't start Kawhi, but where was he going to fit into the rotation? Because you had a ton of players that essentially still did the same thing. So you get a Derrick White who you could come in here to play defense, a guy who could pass the ball well, and a guy who could shoot if need be. He's a great cutter as well. I think he plays the role, and he's not going to be ball dominant. He's not going to need to have the ball the entire game. And I think he understands if he doesn't play in some games or if his minutes are very, very limited. I think that type of player is going to be needed at this point. You're coming in late, you know you're not going to play a lot. I mean, Derrick White can't come in and say, hey, I need to get more minutes and stuff. That's not going to happen, right? I need more minutes than Halliburton or Drew. I think he understands that role, and he knows he's probably not going to play big minutes unless there's a blowout or it's a very, very specific team that you're playing against where they're going to need his services, right? So I think because of that, I'm okay with it. I'm actually okay with it. Now, Jaylen Brown, we don't know exactly how he felt, right? Right afterwards, he tweeted out the monocle, right? The eye monocle, and we don't know what that meant. But then later on, he at Nike on Twitter said, this is what we doing. What does that mean? Now, I think he is alluding to maybe they're playing the political game, right? And that's why he was not selected. Whether or not that is the case or not, I'm not a liability to say. I do not know, right? I could understand that thought process. I just don't know if that necessarily was the case. But if you're Jaylen Brown, I understand feeling some type of way. You just won Finals MVP over your teammate Jason Tatum. I think you had a better playoff run, the entire playoffs, than Jason Tatum. I think as a whole, if you ask me to start an NBA team, I would take Jaylen Brown over Jason Tatum. No slight to Jason Tatum. I just like the game and mentality of Jaylen Brown a little bit more. But I think they're both great players. But if you're Brown from that mentality, that standpoint, you're like, okay, they took him. And now you look at, they took Drew. And now they took Derrick White. So you're looking at the team and you're like, okay, well, we got 3 Celtics. How am I not selected? Just on a human level, I understand it. As a competitor, I understand that. They are your teammates. I'm sure he's happy for them. But in this moment, you're like, yo, what about me? He feels like he got slighted. I definitely understand. So I think both parties could somewhat be correct at the same time. But we'll see what happens. I think ultimately, you know, I want Team USA to win gold. So however they got to get there is how they got to get there. I do like the roster. I still struggle to figure out rotations with this roster. We'll see how they play tonight in the exhibition against Team Canada. But, man, tough blow for Kawhi Leonard. Tough blow for Jaylen Brown. And great news for Derrick White. He was supposed to be going to the ESPYs from what I heard on ESPN, but instead he is coming to Vegas and he is going to try to blend in with the team, mesh with the team as quickly as possible. They haven't been together that long, so I don't think it'll be that difficult, but he's going to try to do as quickly as possible because we're a little over, 2 weeks away from the Olympics starting. So we'll see how things play out. I'm sure he'll play in the rest of the exhibition games that they have lined up. And then we'll go from there. So that's just my thoughts and opinions on the matter. You guys let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section below. Did Team USA mess up, or USA Basketball mess up by taking Derrick White? Do you think it had anything to do with Nike kind of stepping in? Do you think they just went with a better fit? Let me know you guys' thoughts and opinions. And did Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers make the right decision for him? Let me know that in the comment section below as well. As usual, hope you guys did enjoy the video. If you did, please do me a favor. Go ahead, hit that like button. Helps me out a lot. And subscribe if you haven't already. It's DLloyd. I'm going to see y'all next time. Peace.